It's finally over. GarPax is gone, baby.
Turn it up!
Yes, the Bulls just hired the Nuggets GM, and I couldn't be more ecstatic. I'm a Chicago sports fan, I'll admit it, so along with that means that I'm also a Bulls fan, which is much to my dismay. Because for a long time now, Gar Forman and John Paxson have been managing the team. Into the ground. Got him. Now, the sky has opened up, and the sun has come out, and down from the heavens comes the Nuggets GM, whose name I can't pronounce. But this begs the question, how did the Bulls go from 2 three-peats to being the worst run team in the NBA? Let's go back to the start. John Paxson was here in Chicago after helping the Bulls win their first 3 championships. He wasn't anything more than a role player, but with Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen on your team, you really didn't have to be anything special. His biggest moment came in 1993 when he hit the game-winning 3 to win the series against the Charles Barkley Suns in the NBA Finals. Paxson left the Bulls soon after, but for over a half a decade he was the starting point guard, so not too shabby, John, not too shabby. After MJ left in 1998, the Bulls quickly faltered. Jerry Krause, who had been GM during the winning years, scrapped the team entirely, and when the rebuild wasn't showing signs of growth, I mean, Bryce Drew was the starting point guard at one point. Bryce Drew. Krause rightfully gave up his position in 2003. Paxson pounced on the opportunity and became the GM for the Chicago Bulls. Also at the end of the Jordan era, a little-known scout was climbing his way up the ranks. Gar Forman joined the team in 1998, and over the years became the head scout and director of personnel. Initially, things were good. Using the draft, which was spearheaded by both Paxson and Forman, the Bulls picked lots of good young players like Kirk Hinrich, Tyson Chandler, Luol Deng, and Andres Nocioni. In 2004, the Bulls finished 4th in the East, but got bounced in the first round to the Wizards. No shame, though. The team was young. In the years that followed, the Bulls continued to make the playoffs with a young team, and the potential was through the roof. They also continued to draft good players like Joakim Noah and LaMarcus Aldridge, although maybe a bit of foreshadowing here since they traded Aldridge on draft night for Tyrus Thomas, a deal that would be criticized repeatedly to this day. The Bulls never made it far in the East playoffs, but there were signs that things were trending upwards. However, in 2008, everything kind of came to a screeching halt. The Bulls played bad enough to miss the playoffs, and Paxson shuffled things around, firing head coach Scott Skiles and changing a lot of personnel. Oh, and look, it's Pau Gasol.
This is Pau Gasol.
Because the Bulls didn't make the playoffs, they had a lottery pick, but it wasn't a pretty good one since they barely missed out. Going into the NBA lottery, the Bulls had a 1.3% chance of a number 1 pick, but the lottery was kind, more than kind, and the Bulls ended up with the number 1 pick. Now, there's a lot of conspiracy as to whether or not this was rigged because the number 1 prospect in the NBA draft was the Chicago-born Derrick Rose. Well, either way, the Bulls drafted Derrick Rose, and they quickly trended back upward immediately. A rookie Rose helped the Bulls return to the playoffs, and they did more than just make it. They were part of quite possibly the best first-round playoff series ever, and it set the tone for a team that would make the playoffs every year that followed until 2016. Even when the Bulls had Derrick Rose's injuries, the front office and head coach Tom Thibodeau always kept the Bulls competitive. They never got to the conference finals more than once, but that's okay, it was just bad luck. Well, not necessarily. Yes, the Rose injury was out of his control, but behind the scenes, things were starting to get Despite Thibodeau's winning ways, the front office reportedly didn't really like him too much. And also the once competent drafters in the Bulls started not drafting as well. Starting in 2012, the Bulls' first-round picks became Marcus Teague, Tony Snell, Yusuf Nurkic, Gary Harris. Oh wait, those last 2 names sound pretty good. Why'd you mention them on this sarcastic list of bad first-round picks? Oh wait, it's because on draft night they were traded for Doug McDermott. Well, after that, they also got Bobby Portis, Denzel Valentine, Justin Patton, Wendell Carter, Chandler Hutchinson, and Kobe White. Now yes, Carter and White are pretty good players, but the other ones are bombs. Compared to the other players that they got earlier, like Jimmy Butler, who they snagged with the 30th pick, their drafting wasn't as good. Plus, Forman had passed up on guys like Karis LeVert, Malcolm Brogdon, Tim Hardaway Jr., Rudy Gobert, and Seth Curry. All of those guys are solid contributors on their team, and were all drafted within a couple spots of the players the Bulls did pick. On top of that, there were a lot of questionable free agent signings, like letting players like Kyle Korver, Marco Bellinelli, and Brian Scalabrine walk. I mean, are you kidding me? And then at the same time, they were re-signing players like Christiano Felicio, and then in free agency, they were bringing in people like an old-ass Pau Gasol. Oh, and look, it's Pau Gasol.
This is Pau Gasol.
Dwayne Wade, Robin Lopez, Jabari Parker, Rajon Rondo. All of these strange moves led the Bulls to not making the playoffs the last couple of years, which is much to my dismay. Then we get to the coaching decision. The Bulls front office was looking for an excuse to get rid of Tom Thibodeau, and when the Bulls missed the playoffs in 2016 for the first time in 8 years, they cut Tibbs loose. Who did they replace him with? Fred Hoiberg. Now, this isn't confirmed, but let's be honest, they brought him in so he would just be a yes man and follow the front office more than Tibbs. Now, interestingly, at Iowa State, Hoiberg became known for his fast-paced offense that shot a lot and ran a lot of sets. So with that in mind, why does the front office bring in Rajon Rondo, Dwayne Wade, and Robin Lopez to this team? Like, it makes no sense. They literally set him up to fail, which is kind of sad. So unsurprisingly, after a couple seasons of Hoiberg not working out, they fired him and then made the assistant coach, Jim Boylan, become head coach. And oh my god, I'm so glad they fired Hoiberg to upgrade Jim Boylan. And it turns out he was a really good head coach. Could you tell I was being sarcastic? At this point, the Bulls were in full rebuild. I mean, Butler was gone, D. Wade was gone, Rondo was gone, Lopez was gone, fucking Nikola Mirotic gone.
This is Pau Gasol.
No, Pau, that is not you. That's Nikola Mirotic. And in theory, Jim Boylan sounds like a good coach for a young team. He isn't all X's and O's, and that became very apparent very quickly. But he's, a hard-nosed, old-school kind of guy who can whip the young guys into shape and give them good discipline, right? No, he was terrible. He was absolutely the fucking worst coach I've ever seen in my life. He had a terrible relationship with the players who have actively rebelled against him. He has forced them to run suicides and had them have practices the day after losing a game on the road. On the court, Boylan seems to be lost. I mean, it's stuff like calling a timeout at the end of the game when you're losing by over 20 that's just embarrassing and stupid. I mean, Luka Doncic is laughing at you. He also has the strangest relationship with the media. I don't know why he communicates this way. It's just really strange.
Do you see how that could inhibit his confidence though? Because he's playing his best basketball for the last 2 weeks, and then he gets benched for 14 minutes and 47 straight seconds, and there's not a lot of rhythm there. Do you see how that could be hard on him and his confidence?
I mean, are you saying it is hard on him, or are you saying how it could be, or what?
Well, I'm saying I think it could be hard on him.
Yeah.
We gotta go talk to him still, but
Yeah, I don't think so.
I mean, he's just a weird coach, and bad. It took him all the way until one of the final games of the season to finally start Kobe White after he had been Rookie of the Month and had scored 30 points in 4 straight games. His reasoning for not starting him earlier? Because Kobe White has a good voice with the second unit. What? Heck does that even mean? So with all these antics and over a year of being coach under his belt, you'd think the only reason keeping him around here is because the Bulls are winning, and no, that hasn't been happening either, let me tell you that. They turned a promising season into 2019 and 2020 and just made it a massive disappointment. With a bad record, players regressing, yet Boylan hasn't been canned yet, but hopefully that will freaking change, and it seems like that will. My only question is, where the fuck is Bulls owner Jerry Reinsdorf? Why is it only this year they start questioning GarPax, and still seems like he won't completely fire them yet? The fans and media have known that GarPax sucks, and then they need to be gone. I'm so glad that it finally happened. Finally, I can just be done with them.